Why psychopaths always win. What if I told you that the CEO of your company, the politician you voted for, the charming person who got promoted over you, might all share the same dark psychological trait? And what if this trait, this supposed disorder, is actually the secret weapon that's been propelling people to the top, while you've been left wondering why being a good person never seems to pay off? Welcome to the Book Nook, where we explore the uncomfortable truths that society doesn't want you to know. I'm your host, and today we're diving into one of the most controversial topics in psychology: why psychopaths don't just succeed in our world, they dominate it. Before we begin, let me be crystal clear. This isn't about glorifying dangerous behavior or encouraging you to become a monster. This is about understanding the dark reality of how our society actually works, so you can protect yourself and possibly, just possibly, learn some strategic lessons along the way. The statistics are shocking. Studies show that while psychopaths make up only 1% of the general population, they represent 15 to 20% of prison inmates. But here's the kicker: they also represent 3 to 4% of corporate executives. That's 4 times higher than the general population. So buckle up. What you're about to learn will change how you see success forever. Number 1. The psychopath advantage. Let's start with a question that will make you uncomfortable. What if everything you've been taught about success is wrong? Society tells us that empathy, cooperation, and playing by the rules leads to success. We're taught that good guys finish first, that honesty is the best policy, and that treating others well will eventually be rewarded. But here's the dark truth. The business world, politics, and even social hierarchies aren't designed for good people. They're designed for predators. Dr. Kevin Dutton, a renowned psychologist at Oxford University, conducted groundbreaking research that revealed something shocking. When he surveyed the psychological profiles of the most successful people in various fields, he found that they scored significantly higher on psychopathic traits than the general population. Think about it. What does it take to fire hundreds of employees to boost quarterly profits? What does it take to make promises during an election campaign that you have no intention of keeping? What does it take to destroy a competitor's business through ruthless tactics? It takes the absence of something most of us have: a conscience. But here's where it gets really interesting. Psychopaths aren't just successful despite their lack of empathy. They're successful because of it. Let me introduce you to the concept of successful psychopathy. These aren't the serial killers you see in movies. These are your bosses, your politicians, your most successful acquaintances. They've learned to mask their true nature behind a facade of charm and charisma. Dr. Robert Hare, the creator of the Psychopathy Checklist, identified key traits that psychopaths possess: superficial charm, grandiose sense of self-worth, pathological lying, cunning and manipulative behavior, lack of remorse or guilt, shallow emotional range, callousness and lack of empathy, failure to accept responsibility. Now here's the uncomfortable question. How many successful people do you know who display some of these traits? The answer is probably more than you'd like to admit. Number 2. The corporate predator. Let's talk about the boardroom. The place where billions of dollars change hands, where careers are made and destroyed, where the fate of thousands of employees is decided by a handful of people sitting around a mahogany table. What kind of person thrives in this environment? A study by psychologist Paul Babiak found that corporate psychopaths are master manipulators who use a 3-phase strategy to climb the corporate ladder. Phase 1. Assessment. They identify useful people and potential threats. They're excellent at reading people and figuring out what makes them tick. Unlike normal people, who might take months to understand someone's motivations, psychopaths can assess and categorize you within minutes. Phase 2. Manipulation. They create a psychopathic bond with useful people while simultaneously undermining threats. They become whatever you need them to be. Need a mentor? They're your biggest supporter. Need a friend? They're your most loyal confidant. Need a leader? They're the most inspiring person you've ever met. Phase 3. Abandonment. Once they've extracted maximum value from their relationships, they discard people without a second thought. The colleague who helped them get promoted suddenly becomes a liability to be eliminated. The mentor who believed in them gets thrown under the bus when convenient. This isn't just theory. Let's look at real examples. Take the case of Chainsaw Al Dunlap, former CEO of Sunbeam Corporation. Dunlap was known for his ruthless cost-cutting measures, including massive layoffs that earned him his nickname. He showed no remorse for destroying thousands of lives, instead boasting about his tough decisions in his autobiography. Psychological evaluations later revealed he displayed classic psychopathic traits. Or consider the 2008 financial crisis. While millions of people lost their homes, their jobs, their life savings, many of the executives responsible not only felt no remorse, but actually received massive bonuses. They literally profited from other people's misery. But here's what's truly chilling. These aren't isolated incidents. This is how the system works. The modern corporation rewards psychopathic behavior. Let me explain why. Emotional detachment advantage. When you need to make tough decisions like mass layoffs or closing profitable divisions, emotional detachment is an asset. While normal people would be devastated by the human cost, psychopaths see only numbers on a spreadsheet. Manipulation mastery. Corporate politics requires the ability to influence people, build strategic alliances, and eliminate threats. Psychopaths excel at this because they see people as objects to be used rather than individuals to be respected. Risk-taking without consequences. Many breakthrough business decisions require enormous risks. Psychopaths can take these risks because they don't fully process the potential for failure or the impact on others. Charismatic leadership. Contrary to popular belief, many psychopaths are incredibly charming and charismatic. They can inspire loyalty and dedication from their followers, even while planning to exploit them. The result? A Harvard Business Review study found that companies led by psychopathic CEOs initially outperform their competitors, but eventually crash and burn due to reckless decision-making and toxic company culture. But by the time the company fails, the psychopathic leader has already moved on to their next victim, opportunity. Number 3, the political predator. If corporations are hunting grounds for psychopaths, politics is their natural habitat. Think about what politics requires. The ability to lie convincingly, the willingness to make promises you can't keep, the skill to manipulate public opinion, the capacity to destroy your opponents without feeling guilty, the talent for appearing authentic while being completely fake. Dr. Kevin Dutton's research revealed that politicians score higher on psychopathic traits than any other profession except CEOs and lawyers. Let that sink in. The people we trust to lead our societies are more psychopathic than the general population. But here's the twisted logic. Maybe that's exactly what we want. Consider the traits we actually reward in political leaders. Confidence over competence. We're more likely to vote for someone who confidently promises impossible things than someone who honestly explains complex problems. Psychopaths excel at projecting confidence because they genuinely believe they're superior to everyone else. Charisma over character. We're drawn to charming, charismatic leaders even when their policies might hurt us. Psychopaths are masters of superficial charm and can make you feel like you're the most important person in the world, right up until they betray you. Simplicity over truth. Complex problems require complex solutions, but voters prefer simple answers. Psychopaths have no problem lying or oversimplifying if it serves their purpose. During election campaigns, successful politicians create different personas for different audiences. They tell rural voters they understand their struggles, while telling urban voters they share their values. They promise tax cuts to the wealthy, while promising social programs to the poor. This isn't just strategic positioning, it's pathological lying. But here's the thing, it works. Studies show that politicians who display moderate psychopathic traits are more successful at winning elections and maintaining power than those who don't. They're better at reading the room, understanding what people want to hear, creating false intimacy, making voters feel personally connected to them, deflecting blame, never taking responsibility when things go wrong, exploiting fear, using people's anxieties to gain support, making tough decisions, implementing unpopular policies without emotional hesitation. The most successful political psychopaths don't just win elections, they change the entire political landscape. They shift the conversation from policy to personality, from issues to identity, from governance to entertainment. And once they're in power, the psychopathic traits that got them there become even more pronounced. Power doesn't corrupt psychopaths, it reveals them. 4. The seduction of darkness. Now comes the most uncomfortable question of all. If psychopaths are so successful, should we become more like them? Before you dismiss this question, consider how you already might be adapting psychopathic strategies without realizing it. Have you ever put on a fake smile during a job interview? Told a client what they wanted to hear rather than the truth? Taken credit for someone else's work? Thrown a colleague under the bus to protect yourself? Made a decision based purely on self-interest while pretending it was for the greater good? If you answered yes to any of these, you've already dabbled in psychopathic behavior. The question is, how far are you willing to go? This is what psychologists call subclinical psychopathy, having some psychopathic traits without being a full-blown psychopath. And here's the scary part. Research suggests that people with moderate levels of psychopathic traits often outperform both highly empathetic people and full psychopaths. Why? Because they can turn their empathy on and off like a switch. They can be ruthless when necessary, but still maintain genuine relationships when it serves them. Let's explore the dark triad of personality traits that often lead to success. Narcissism, an inflated sense of self-importance and entitlement. Narcissists believe they deserve success more than others and aren't held back by self-doubt or imposter syndrome. Machiavellianism, the willingness to manipulate and exploit others for personal gain. Machiavellians see social interactions as chess games where other people are pieces to be moved around the board. Psychopathy, the lack of empathy and remorse combined with superficial charm and risk-taking behavior. Psychopaths can make decisions without being paralyzed by guilt or concern for others. Studies show that people who score moderately high on these traits earn more money, get promoted faster, and report higher levels of life satisfaction than their more empathetic counterparts. But here's the catch. There's a sweet spot. Too little darkness, and you get walked over. Too much, and you eventually self-destruct. The most successful people find the perfect balance. Think of it as successful sociopathy, being able to access your dark side when necessary while maintaining your humanity most of the time. Some practical applications. In negotiations, psychopaths are excellent negotiators because they don't get emotionally invested in outcomes. They can walk away from deals that don't serve them, even if the other party desperately needs the agreement. In leadership, effective leaders sometimes need to make unpopular decisions. The ability to temporarily suppress empathy allows them to fire underperformers, cut costs, or change direction without being paralyzed by guilt. In sales, the best salespeople can create artificial intimacy with clients, tell them what they want to hear, and close deals without worrying about buyer's remorse. In relationships, even in personal relationships, some level of strategic thinking and emotional manipulation, like knowing when to be vulnerable and when to be strong, can be beneficial. But here's the warning. Once you start down this path, it becomes easier to justify increasingly questionable behavior. The line between strategic thinking and genuine psychopathy is thinner than most people realize. Number 5. The price of power. Everything we've discussed so far might make psychopathy sound appealing. After all, who wouldn't want to be more confident, less anxious, and more successful? But every advantage comes with a cost. And the price of psychopathic success is higher than most people realize. Let's talk about what psychopaths actually lose by winning. The loneliness of success. Psychopaths struggle to form genuine relationships. Their interactions are transactional, strategic, calculated. They might have many acquaintances and admirers, but few true friends. They excel at creating the illusion of intimacy without experiencing the reality of connection. Research by Dr. Craig Newman found that successful psychopaths report higher levels of loneliness and depression than the general population, despite their material success. They achieve everything they thought they wanted, only to discover it doesn't actually fulfill them. The addiction to stimulation. Psychopaths have a neurological need for constant stimulation and excitement. Success in business or politics provides this temporarily, but like any addiction, they need bigger and bigger hits to feel satisfied. This often leads to increasingly reckless behavior that eventually destroys them. The hollow victory. Normal people derive satisfaction from meaningful work, positive relationships, and making a difference. Psychopaths can achieve remarkable external success, but they struggle to find internal meaning or satisfaction in their accomplishments. The inevitable fall. The same traits that help psychopaths rise to power often cause their eventual downfall. Their arrogance leads to overconfidence. Their manipulation creates enemies. Their lack of genuine loyalty means no one will save them when they stumble. Elizabeth Holmes of Theranos. Her psychopathic confidence and manipulation skills helped her raise hundreds of millions of dollars for a fraudulent company. But her inability to admit weakness or ask for help eventually led to criminal charges and imprisonment. Bernie Madoff. His charm and apparent success attracted billions in investments to his Ponzi scheme. But psychopaths are terrible at long-term planning because they don't truly believe in consequences, leading to his inevitable exposure and downfall. Lance Armstrong. His ruthless win-at-all-costs mentality made him a cycling champion. But his willingness to destroy anyone who threatened to expose his doping led to the complete collapse of his reputation and legacy. But perhaps the highest price is this: psychopaths never get to experience what they're actually chasing. Think about it. They pursue power, but power without empathy is just control. They seek admiration, but admiration without genuine connection is just performance. They want to win, but victory without humanity is just an empty trophy. They spend their entire lives trying to fill a void that can't be filled through external achievement. No amount of success, money, or power can substitute for the human connections they're incapable of forming. This brings us to a crucial realization. Maybe the reason psychopaths always win is because they're playing a different game entirely, one where the prizes aren't actually worth winning. #6, the empathy advantage. So where does this leave those of us who still have a conscience? Are we doomed to be victims in a world designed for predators? Should we abandon our empathy to compete with psychopaths? Or is there another way? Here's what the research actually shows. While psychopaths might dominate in certain environments, empathetic people have advantages that psychopaths can never replicate. Sustainable success. Psychopathic leaders create short-term gains but long-term disasters. Empathetic leaders build sustainable organizations that outperform psychopathic-led companies over time. A study by Jim Collins found that the most successful companies over decades were led by what he called Level 5 leaders, people who combine fierce determination with personal humility. Innovation through collaboration. The most groundbreaking innovations come from teams working together toward a common goal. Psychopaths are terrible at true collaboration because they see teammates as competitors or tools. Empathetic leaders can create environments where people genuinely want to contribute their best ideas. Crisis resilience. When organizations face genuine crises, people rally around leaders they trust and respect. Psychopathic leaders who've built their success on manipulation find themselves isolated when they need support most. Empathetic leaders who've invested in real relationships can weather storms that destroy psychopaths. Authentic influence. Psychopaths influence through fear, manipulation, and false charm. This works until people see through the facade. Empathetic leaders influence through inspiration, shared vision, and genuine care for others. This creates lasting loyalty that transcends individual transactions. So here's your choice. You can try to become more psychopathic, which might give you short-term advantages, but will ultimately leave you hollow and isolated. Or you can develop what I call strategic empathy, maintaining your humanity while becoming more psychologically sophisticated. Strategic empathy means understanding how psychopaths operate so you can protect yourself. Being able to make tough decisions when necessary without losing your compassion. Building genuine relationships while recognizing and avoiding manipulative ones. Using your empathy as a competitive advantage rather than seeing it as a weakness. The truth is, we need both types of people in our world. We need some individuals who can make cold, calculated decisions in crisis situations. But we also need people who can build, nurture, and inspire. The real winners aren't those who choose between empathy and success. They're those who find a way to achieve both. So why do psychopaths always win? They don't. They just define winning differently than the rest of us. They win at accumulating power, money, and status. But they lose at creating meaning, building relationships, and finding genuine fulfillment. The question isn't whether you should become more psychopathic. The question is, what game do you want to play, and what prizes are actually worth winning? That's all for today's episode of The Book Nook. If this opened your eyes to uncomfortable truths about success and society, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. We'll be exploring more dark psychology, brutal truths, and hidden realities that shape our world. Remember, knowledge is power, but wisdom is knowing how to use that power responsibly. Until next time, keep questioning everything. If you found this content valuable, check out our playlist on dark psychology secrets. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more uncomfortable truths that society doesn't want you to know.